Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and on the left I've got my Galaxy Fold 3, and on the right, the new Fold 4. And while the changes on the surface may not exactly blow your mind, Samsung have refined and I think almost perfected the formula for making a folding tablet. So what's new, and should you actually consider buying it? Well, the first thing I would say is the Fold 4 is not really meant for most people. It's £1,650 for starters, which actually is 50 quid more than the Fold 3, so a slight price increase there, but it's also 650 more than this. I've got the Flip 4 and the Fold 4. But the Flip is what most people who just want a regular phone that does something a little bit different, stands out and gives you some extra flexibility with the cover screen and flex mode. But this is not my Flip impressions video. You can actually click at the top right if you want to watch that. This is about the Fold, which is something completely different really. It's not just a folding phone, it's a folding tablet. It's for power users, it's a productivity tool. I mean, one of the headline upgrades is this new Taskbar, which makes it more like a PC or even Samsung's DeX desktop, which to me is actually very exciting because I'm a bit of a nerd. To my friends, maybe not so much, but it does make multitasking a whole lot easier. You can group up to 3 apps together, so just one touch brings up your favorite setup and you can switch between them. And it just makes it feel less claustrophobic. This is the Fold 3. I've been using this for quite a while actually, and we haven't got the Taskbar yet. Fingers crossed, being a software feature, it may trickle down, but at least for now, Samsung won't confirm that, and it is currently exclusive to the Fold 4. But as Samsung are saying, it makes it feel more like a desktop, which for me is a really welcome improvement. And they've also updated apps like Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Microsoft Office, and a handful of others to really take advantage of that tablet screen, or if you're using it in flex mode. I mean, really, it's the bane of all Android tablets that there's just not that many tablet-optimized apps in the Play Store, but Samsung are making inroads, and as the Flips and the Folds get more popular, then presumably developers will make more of an effort to optimize for them as well. But if you combine all of that, including the Taskbar, with an S Pen, again, only this, the S22 Ultra, and the Galaxy Tab support pens, the Fold 4 is a proper little workstation. And even if the Taskbar doesn't end up being an exclusive feature and you can eventually get it on the Fold 3, there's a whole bunch of other upgrades here. On the inside, we now get the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is up from the 888 last year, so a nice little boost in power and also efficiency, because while the battery size has actually stayed the same, unlike the increase we saw on the Flip 4, I reckon the combination of the more efficient chip and the fact that the refresh rate can now adapt between 1 and 120 Hz rather than 10 and 120 before, while I haven't been able to properly test it yet, I would expect to see a small increase in battery life. It's kind of weird to me, compared to what everyone else is doing, how little effort Samsung actually put into charging times. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. We got 25 watt wired, 15 watt wireless, and also 4.5 watt reverse wireless charging, but we're just not seeing much improvement year on year from Samsung in terms of charging speeds. And just going off on a tangent, but you'd have thought because this does use a dual battery cell design, which a lot of the new phones with super fast charging, like over 100 watts, do, you'd think maybe you could get that with this as well, but no. Still the same. Now the screen itself is around 12% stronger this year because we get Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, up from just the regular old Victus before. The crease down the middle hasn't really changed. Straight on you can't really see it, but you can feel it, and off angle it's still fairly obvious, but you do get used to it, it's not really an issue. But the tougher screen is also paired with the same aluminium armor frame, as they call it, for the edges and the hinge, and also we still get IPX8 water resistance, which means it'll survive a dunk in 1.5 meters of fresh water for up to half an hour. I mentioned this in my Flip 4 impressions video, which, as I say, you can click there and watch afterwards if you fancy, but they're still the only brand to give us foldables with any kind of water resistance rating or any IP rating. This is the new Huawei Mate X S2, and you've got no protection, nor do you on the Oppo Find N. These are still, pretty interesting tablets themselves, and if you would like to see a comparison between the Fold 4 and the Mate X S2, let me know in the comments below. But in terms of durability, my money's on Samsung. I know they had the issues in the past with the original one where you could literally peel the screen off, but take a look at this nightmare material, which really is quite creepy. But it's a whole bunch of robots demonstrating the 200,000 open and close operations that test the Fold's durability. There are certainly pros and cons between the Fold's design and what you get with, say, the Huawei Mate X S2 here, but in terms of units sold and the fact that we're on the 4th generation, I just have more confidence in the Fold and also the Flip than any other foldable, really. Now, speaking of last year's Fold 3, because that introduced this, the under-screen selfie camera, which was cool, but it felt a little bit first gen. Well, now with the Fold 4, we have a new pixel layout, which does a much better job at camouflaging it. It is almost invisible. I mean, if the light hits it just right, you can maybe just make it out, but it's certainly a lot less distracting than before. You can also see Samsung slim down those bezels, both on the tablet and the cover screen, and in fact, the thinner hinge and the narrower bezels have allowed Samsung to squeeze in a slightly wider cover screen with a new aspect ratio, but without making the overall footprint any wider. And in addition to making the whole thing 3.2mm shorter and also 8 grams lighter, which makes this the thinnest and the lightest Fold yet, although it doesn't dramatically change how narrow that cover screen still feels, particularly for typing. And I reckon if it was a problem for you before, it's still going to be a problem for you now. I still can't believe the Folds have 5 cameras. We've got the tablet selfie, we've got the cover selfie, and we've got the triple lens setup on the back with a main ultra-wide and telephoto, which all looks pretty similar to what we get on the Fold 4, but instead of having 3 12-megapixel cameras, we now get a 50-megapixel main lens with a 23% larger pixel sensor, which should go a long way to improve low light quality, plus a 12-megapixel ultra-wide and a 10-megapixel telephoto with a 3x optical and a 30x space zoom. It's also worth mentioning the NPU, or neural processing unit, on the chip is a lot more powerful, so while it's kind of hard to quantify, this could improve the processing and the quality of all the cameras to some extent. And the other camera improvements are to the OIS and also what they call VDIS, which is basically EIS, electronic stabilization, but for video specifically. Now, to be honest with you, I barely had a couple of hours with the phone, so I wasn't able to properly test the camera or the battery life for that matter, and so those are things I'll sort of withhold judgment on until my full review, which will be coming very soon. But what I can say is first impressions, and at least on paper, it's still not going to be quite as good as the S22 Ultra. That's still the flagship camera phone. But even so, the beauty of the Fold and the Flip is that you get to use the rear cameras, the higher quality cameras, for nearly everything, including selfies. And I can tell you, my wife Sarah loves being able to see herself on the cover screen as I take a photo. And as I say, you can also use the higher quality rear cameras as your selfie camera, although a selfie ultra-wide does look a bit odd. And if you do use it in flex mode, it can act as its own tripod, whether it's for Zoom calls or you're recording yourself. Like the Flip, you can get really creative with how you use this. So, should you buy the Fold 4? Well, I can't tell you yet. Don't know, haven't had my review sample. I will let you know. Make sure you have subscribed so you can see my full review and also comparison videos. But what I can tell you right now, I think the upgrade on the new Flip, the Flip 4, is more significant, more impactful than the upgrades we're getting on the Fold 4. But with that said, the Fold 4 is still thinner, it's lighter, slimmer bezels, we have a wider cover screen, I've got the new Taskbar, the new flex modes, improved cameras, a now properly hidden under-screen camera, tougher glass, and maybe even a slightly longer battery life. So a very welcome refinement, but probably not enough of an upgrade to make you chuck your Fold 3 in the bin and rush out and buy this. But if you're on the Fold 2 or earlier, or maybe you're looking at jumping into the world of foldables for the first time, well, this isn't it, this is the Fold 3, but I reckon the Fold 4 is going to be a really good place to start if you have pretty deep pockets, because as I say, it starts at £1,650, which is 50 quid more than last year, which gets you 12 gigs of RAM and 256 storage, which is probably all you need, although there are 512 and 1 terabyte options that tops out at over £2,000. But what do you think? Tempted or still too expensive? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to see what I think of the new Flip, then also click this video right here. I made that just for you and for all my full reviews and upcoming comparisons. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.